capacity? Did they have the resources available? Yes. So we recommended them for award. In the next two zones, they didn't have the bonding capacity for that. And we had to go right down the zones. So we did that process all the way through, so that once we got back to a zone where MCG was low again, we always checked their bonding capacity. If they had the capacity, we would award it. If not, we had to go to the next one. So basically, that's how we ended up with 6 zones. Duncan Seawall, they did request 3 zones, but after review of their resources and in discussion with them, they were not comfortable with taking on 3 of the largest zones. So they requested to be only awarded 2.
Can you just speak really quickly in general terms about mobilization? Like if it was suggested that we should not do the vacant lots that are in those zones that are damaged? I don't know who could speak to it, but it does make sense financially to do the work when you're in that area, because the mobilization, I know, is a big part of the work that, they do.
Good morning, Mark Gehring. I'm not sure I fully understood the question.
Like if we were to not do the vacant lots that are connected to the work that we're doing now, what does that mean to us
Oh, yes.
financially?
Every seawall that we build, we have to tie into an adjacent seawall. If we don't tie into adjacent seawall, you need to do a turn back. That's where the seawall comes back and ties into the property in order to have stabilization there. And you see that quite often in Port Charlotte, where one individual builds a seawall. It does not prevent erosion from happening at the 2 ends of the seawall, though. So now it compounds the problem. So then when you come back in to build the next section of seawall, you have to take out that tie back, the turn back, and it just adds, at least 6 to 8 feet of seawall at both ends that you're paying for and then ripping out.
So, and then it's a different process pretty much altogether than what we're doing now, if going through and replacing the damage.
Yes, we don't do any turnbacks in our seawalls. We're continuous.
Okay, thank you. Nancy?
But I don't think that that's what the gentleman was referring to. I think what he is referring to is that we would prioritize doing work on properties where there are structures, as opposed to doing work on properties where it is vacant.
We don't anticipate that happening where
And-
we're actually
So if you are mobilizing and you are, I think what you have said in the past is it makes more sense for us to do the work while we're there, regardless of whether there's a structure on the property or not. And what the gentleman is referring to is prioritizing where there are structures, because the erosion can impact the pool cage area or the home itself. And so that everybody who has a structure gets treated before vacant lots are treated.
If we were to do that, then we would have several starting and stopping points where we're replacing a lot of seawall, the turnbacks that we'd be putting in.
Still have to put turnbacks in?
Yes, because
Any place you put a seawall where you do not anchor to an adjacent
Yeah,
seawall.
you would always, it has nothing to do with anchoring against an adjacent seawall. What Mr. Fritz is referring to is replacing the seawalls where they have fallen, where there are homes on them, as opposed to replacing the seawall where there is no structure on that vacant lot. There's a seawall there, but there's just nothing on that property.
But if it's damaged, it has to be repaired.
Yes, but I'm saying it has nothing to do with turnbacks.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it,
No, it doesn't. When you replace a down seawall on a vacant lot, you don't have to have turnbacks there. You
tie it into the one next
tie
to
it
it.
into the one next to it anyway.
So if the next one's compromised on the vacant lot, then it's a destroyed system. He's completing an entire canal system.
I
And
understand.
If we have like areas in vacant lots that are compromised, not addressing those means that everything around it is compromised.
But no, it's a
Take-
matter of
on our
establishing
street,
priority.
The seawall is damaged on the vacant lot and the house next to it. So if they were to come in and do my neighbor's house and not do the vacant lot, they would have to turn back because they can't tie into the
Oh, I
next.
see what you're saying. Okay.
There's no way to tie it in if the next lot is damaged. So what? We turn it back and then we leave and then we have to pay them to come all the way back, take that out, and then redo that vacant lot just because there's no house there. I mean, that financially really doesn't make sense.
And it takes time.
I see what you're saying.
What I might also add is there are some people that have recently purchased vacant lots that are wanting to build, and they can't build on those as long as the seawall is damaged either. So there may be situations like that. So they've got to make it contiguous so that everybody's property is restored universally at the same time
Right.
in a specific area.
No, it's good, it's good to have this discussion so that it's all out there.
Yes.
One thing I might want to add is all the zones are to be worked on consecutively. They have to work on everything at the same time, and that's why we had to make sure we put a maximum zones on those contractors. Our goal is to have them all done within 18 months.
I'll wait till after we vote.
Okay. So does everybody understand there's 3 awards in this? Can we vote on them all at one? in one
And
fell
appropriate the
swoop?
funds.
Yes?
And appropriate the funds.
The funds.
I so move.
Yes, you can do that unless somebody has some objection to voting on all three. I mean,
Okay. Does anybody have any objection to?
I move that we vote on all 3.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion, a second, to award and appropriate the funds to the 3 contractors. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Now, I would like for, Howard, I hope you're going to address exactly what's going to occur with Brent Store Isles, because you know, if I represent that area, I would like for us to get work started ASAP as well. So I think it's important for us to communicate our sense of urgency about that.
Well, sometimes you just can't let comments stand the way they are. This is one of those times. When staff looks at various projects, we look at the city as a whole, and we try and prioritize where we can accomplish the most and the most in need. In seawalls, most of the significant damage occurred in Punta Gorda Isles, point blank. So when we prioritized, we had our inspectors go out there, and they went to every single property, and there's a high priority, medium priority, and low priority. And when we bid the project, we bid it through FEMA regulations every step of the way. And we got the contractors to do as much of the work in the most damaged areas immediately as we could. That's why you have 6 of the 8 zones. That doesn't mean we're just gonna put the other 2 zones away and forget about them. No, that's not what we're doing. We're now gonna go back, the Harbor Walk can stand on its own. We're gonna take Burnstar Isles, and maybe we need to take Burnstar Isles and cut that into a couple of zones so that we can get some of the smaller contractors out there who have bonding capacity to perform that work. And we're gonna get on that and work with FEMA every step of the way on that. So that's how we handle this. And we talked about mobilization. You want to get a contractor in there for that whole area, get them to do the work in that one area, and then move on. You know, it's not like we're taking one neighborhood to the sacrifice of other neighborhoods. That's not how we do things. For instance, our drainage program. We started in Burnstar Meadows. We then went to Burnstar Isles. We're still in Burnstar Isles. We haven't had people in Punta Gorda Isles or the east side or the west side or the downtown area storming City Hall as to why are you just doing Burnstar Isles? Well, that's how we got the program started. Debris removal. We got our crews to start in Burnstar Meadows, then we went to Burnstar Isles. Then we went into Punta Gorda Isles, and then we got down to the downtown area. We didn't have, we got complaints about starting on our debris removal. We tried to do the best we could, but that's how we prioritize that. We have to make some decisions as to how we're going to get work accomplished. And we don't take one neighborhood to the detriment of other neighborhoods. We try and look at the city as a whole and how best we can accomplish the task. I think we've done that in the seawalls. We're now gonna take a look at Bernstone Isles, break it into a couple of different sections, and see if we can get the other seawall contractors who couldn't bid on these other ones, maybe a smaller project can get them involved. We're gonna get on it.
And to that point, the dollar amounts of those contracts are very large. And, you know, the resources, another, we don't have workers here. I mean, they're lucky to have the people, like with the debris removal, same thing. It's a shortage of help. So, yeah, as soon as we can get that, and they're, you know, staff is on it. Staff has had many discussions about it, and they're, you know, doing their best to get creative on bringing more contractors into, you know, like she said, a room full came to the meeting, but then how many did we really get that were able to actually bid on those, you know, larger zones? Gary?
I'd just like to make two comments. One is regarding to the seawall, our staff has already started towards that end of having all of our sea roads repaired. Last I heard, we had 800 sea panels already pre-poured, waiting for contractors to start. Our staff has not been sitting and languishing until we got our bids awarded. They've been preemptively and proactively preparing so that we can get this work done. And just on debris removal, because I did give Howard a little bit of a hard time about this, but my block was the last block to be cleared. Yet I was still cleared months ahead of other neighborhoods. Howard the Hauler is still doing a lot of business down here in Southwest Florida. Just, was it 2 weeks ago, Estero had a big press release. They finally finished their debris removal. We were ahead of the game all the way through, and it was because of the proactivity of our staff. So I just want to say, staff has not been sitting on its laurels. We're going through this process, and I have full confidence that we're going to take care of Bernstone Isles as quickly as we can.
Well, I've already talked with Marion, and I think that your full intention is to go out to bid in January, 30-day waiting period. So, you know, staff is going to operate with expediency there to get this done, so.
It reminds me of FPL. I mean, somebody's the last to get the power on. They can't just go and, you know, when they all those meetings we went to, they said, if we go house by house, it'll take us forever. You know, we have to work on the system, and that's the same with what we're dealing with here.
Right.
And unfortunately, you know, it may look a certain way, but hopefully today you got your explanations and you know that we're doing the best we can to get work in all the areas. The Harbor Walk can be last. Hopefully it doesn't fall into the drink. Okay, next we have unfinished business, non-monetary donation policy.
For the record, Mitchell Austin, Urban Design. Over the years, the city has acquired a wide variety of objects through donations from individuals and groups, and we've never had any real formal review process for how those donations are accepted. So this policy, which is in your agenda, aims to correct that. The draft policy is really quite simple. We tried to keep it simple. It outlines procedures for consideration of non-monetary donations to the city in 3 parts. We have a proposal or a letter of intent requirement by the donor to the city, a review by a donation review committee, and approval by city council based on those recommendations from the review committee. The policy also contains some detailed requirements for the proposal letter, criteria for the acceptance of gifts, and the composition of the donation review committee.
Very thorough, I have to say. There was one word in here. It was digression. Let me see where it is. It didn't quite make sense to me.
It's,
Okay, it's under other considerations, the first section, which says
It's-
removal, relocation, or
decession.
decession.
It's basically disposal.
So then the second bullet point says, the city shall, you got big words in here. I know.
Decess and dispose of works donated by the collection at its sole discretion.
So, yeah, so digression.
Decession and discretion are 2 different words.
So it
Yes,
should be
ma'am.
discretion.
Yes.
Okay,
So-
good.
So
Because you were really had me on that one. I was like, I gotta get the dictionary out for all of this. Okay, so discretion of the first right of refusal provided to the donor, which is great. That
Yes.
makes more sense. Lynn?
yes.
Question for you, Mitch.
Yes, ma'am.
With regard to the donation review committee, how does one get on that committee if they want to? Because I know somebody that would like to do that.
Well, the next step, assuming that City Council adopts this policy, is we need to get together with and draft bylaws for that committee. So we would probably model it on the same language that we have for all of the other advisory boards to the city. So City Council would be approving those
So
those
they would then
members.
apply
Yeah,
as
they
a-
would then
okay.
apply through that process, yes.
Do you have any idea what the timing is for this, as far as getting this up and running?
If council approves this today, then we would draft those bylaws hopefully for a meeting in January, and then we would have the board hopefully operational by February, March.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy?
Well, I read it here later on in there, you mentioned who would, you addressed that perfectly when you said that 3 representatives would be from the Historic Preservation Advisory Board.
Yes.
One from a local nonprofit and one from the arts. I don't know that I want to see this become something that has to operate in the sunshine. So if we make this a formal committee of the city, then that means that the city clerk's office is going to have to take minutes of the meetings, and, I mean, it's going to be a whole lot different than the LDR committee that meets, which is more of an informal committee. So it was my expectation that this was going to be more of an informal committee, and as opposed to one that is on our list of boards and committees on our website. And,
That's a good point.
The
Yeah.
difference is that this committee is making a recommendation directly to the city council, whereas the Land Development Regulations Committee sort of just advises staff. And
Correct.
because of the direct recommendation to city council, it has to be subject to sunshine law.
Could we roll it into the HPAB like the CRA into the city council? So at the HPAB meeting, you know, the 3 people stay and the 2 new people come in? And the court recording secretary is already there and it's held at the same time? Can that be accomplished?
That was the intent.
Okay, good.
In terms of the meetings, it states that they'll be held on a quarterly basis immediately following
Oh,
the
yes.
regularly
I
scheduled
see that
meeting
now.
of the
Okay,
So it wouldn't be a separate meeting. Those 2 new people would just be coming in, and then we would hopefully have a fairly quick meeting. And of course, if there are no items on that, then that meeting would be canceled, so it wouldn't even need to occur.
I'd like to see if we can keep it simple and not create a whole nother.
that's pretty simple.
Yeah, yeah.
That's simple.
The other thing I totally agree with a policy where we are just not blanket accepting things, because then that gets into, I've been involved in those before where it gets to be very complicated. And a donation of 40 acres of land, and while it sounds great, it was pretty vertical, so with no road access, so it's like, it's worthless almost. But when you talk about all these things like the professional appraisal of the artwork's value, and, you know, so I was looking at this and saying, if somebody has something and they know that intrinsically it's got some value, are we going to then ask, and we want it, are we going to ask someone just to go out and spend money to get an appraisal?
You gotta come to the microphone. State your name too, please.
Yeah, Donna Peterman, Chair of the Historic Preservation Advisory Board. I think the intent was really to have the person who wants to make the donation to do all of the paperwork to demonstrate the value so that we can make a decision on whether or not we want to take it. I would also say our intent is not to collect a bunch of things. We're really trying to manage it so that if we do take something, we understand what it's going to take to maintain it, and we also have some guidelines around showcasing it or how long we keep it. So it's really to try to minimize going forward. And this also follows a number of other organizations that we researched, that they really put the onus on the donor.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that it would be an appraisal, but they could just demonstrate somehow
Yeah, they have
that there
they
is
have to have some
value.
proof.
Okay.
Right. And that was directly based on our experience, a number of the things that are currently displayed in the City Hall and City Hall Annex complex here, which are historic-looking documents, are actually reproductions, so they have no value, but we didn't know that until we had somebody else come in and say, yeah, these are just reproductions. These photographs wouldn't have all been the same size.
And that's why we want to include a representative of a historic organization as well as one of our arts institutions, so they could provide that expert input as well.
Thank you. It sounds good to me. I like it.
Make a motion for approval.
Second?
We have a motion, second, to approve the non-monetary donation policy. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we have the update on the temporary restroom facilities, and we heard this morning that Don, the electrician,
The restrooms are in place. The trailer is there. There's 3 areas, ADA, a man and a woman. Parks has already run the water line. We have the electrician out there. The final part to it is that utilities staff will go out there and hook it up to the sewer, and it'll be in use. And utilities has been doing a lot of work on some water leaks lately, but they'll get there, and
yeah,
we'll
they made Wink News. Wink News featured your utility crew last night.
And they got it all totally wrong, even though we actually spelled it out for them. Tom Jackson, for the record, I'm going to jump ahead. Actually, Andrew and his guys were cutting the gravity line in, and when I drove by this morning,
so it'll be up and
Yeah.
running fairly soon.
in a day or so. We should be connected in a day or so. I don't know if they gave you a hard schedule or not, but I know it won't take long.
But it'll be a Christmas present for the weekly report.
Yes, it will. It'll be very nice. And
Brown said it would be done today. I talked to him.
yeah, Andrew, yeah.
Okay.
We weren't 100% sure we could get Bobby's guys on it first thing this morning. That's why I was hesitant to say, but when I drove by and saw him there, Andrew doesn't let any grass grow under his feet. And the leak over here was an abandoned service line. There used to be, as those that were here prior to Charlie recall, there was a house back here in the parking lot, and it was the service line that served that house, which was abandoned, and it was a service connection leak. It wasn't a water main break or a water main leak. Unfortunately, we had to close a couple lanes of the road to get equipment in there to dig it up it was a 1-hour repair once we dug it up, and we explained that to the news, but I got home and I actually had Florida Rural Water People Association call me from Tallahassee and say,
Need help?
do we need to send you help for your big massive water leak that you have? And I said, which one would that be? Because we've had 20 so far this week. Which one are you talking about? But yeah, I guess it was a slow news day.
Howard, what are the hours of the restrooms in Gilchrist Park?
I can't remember.
They're not 24, I mean, they do
No, they weren't
open and
24
close.
hour, no.
Okay,
I don't know, whatever, I can't remember.
okay.
We'll,
They do close at night.
yes,
Okay.
they were being closed at night.
Thank you. Next, we have the RO, third-party review.
Tom Jackson, for the record, Utilities Department, and I put a sticky note on this to remind me to tell you that as of noon yesterday, we got intent to issue the water use permit for the RO facility.
Ow.
The Water Management District had promised that as a Christmas gift to the city. We got their intent to issue with the draft permit. I've done a very cursory review of it. I've had staff look at it. We're going to look at it real hard for one more day, but we don't see anything in that isn't just a normal standard water use permit and nothing the city can't live with. There's no special conditions or sampling that we did not anticipate and is not standard for a facility of this type. So that's good news, and I let Marion know that so that there's no reason not to go forward and bid this project out effective the first part of the year, which I think was finance's goal from the beginning. I'm here today to talk about the Water Management District third-party review of the project. That happened last couple of Fridays ago on December the 12th, 8 days ago on December the 12th, up in outside of Tampa. They actually were finalizing the contract and the review of 2 projects because the RO facility is broken into 2 projects, N600 and N780. N600 is the groundwater wells and the groundwater testing. That also fell under third-party review, and N780 is the actual RO facility itself. And their entire presentation is in your packet. I only pulled out about 5 or so slides just to give you an overview of the process, because we're new to the process as well. The third-party review is dictated by Governing Board Policy 103-4. It looks at construction cost, estimated costs on any project over $5 million, or complex projects that fall in the range of greater than $1 million to $5 million. It is usually completed at the 30% design phase. Because this was not in effect when we started our project, they actually reviewed both of our projects at 90% design, which was good, and as we'll talk about a little bit later, a little different for them. Just a very quick overview of the history of these projects in terms of the Water Management District funding. As you'll recall, our project was approved and put above the line, the famous funding line, back in June of 2014. An agreement was executed with the city for the engineer's estimate of cost of $32.2 million. A condition of that required a regional interconnect, and as you know, we're doing the Phase 1 pipeline that'll connect directly with our plant from the Peace River Authority plant. It would require 2 third-party review approvals, one on the Wellfield feasibility study, which was completed last September 2017, that review was done, and then an RO facility design and constructability and permittability review, which was done on the 12th of December. The purpose of the facility third-party review, and it was done at the 90% design level, which is, I think, the first one they've ever done that wasn't at the 30% design. We were much further along, again, because this requirement did not exist when we started this project. The review team analyzed the design, the schedule, and the cost, the 3 major components. And I'll mention that the design, the review was done by an engineering firm that was selected by the Water Management District, although we paid for it.
We paid for half of it.
We paid for half of it, that is correct. Thank you, that is correct. The factors that the third-party review engineering firm considered was the cost effectiveness metrics. Does it meet the criteria? That got a check mark. The overall conceptual estimate, there were no major omissions or errors in the design. That got a check mark. The percentage change, the project came in at our current estimate, engineer's estimate of costs, at greater than 20% over our original $32.2 million contract with the Water Management District. They don't like to see anything over 20%, but remember, we started this almost 8 years ago. That 32.2 was at a 30% design, and we haven't bid this project out yet, and I'm sure once we get those numbers back in January, they're going to look a little different. And then the cooperator's performance, we have an outstanding, in my opinion, and the district's opinion, reputation with doing these types of projects with the Water Management District. This will be our 3rd or 4th one since I've been here. And then they track the overall results. All of those boxes got checked off. The final overall, and again, I am reducing the entire report a few pages, but generally it said, and this is the Water Management District's presentation that their bureau chief made to their board. I just pulled a few pages of it out. This is not my presentation. Overall, the ranking for the project was medium, cost effectiveness was medium, strategic goals high. The strategic initiatives, which is what we actually have always believe this project would accomplish, and it is a good project for that reason, is it uses an alternative water supply, because our wells are in a brackish aquifer. That water is not good for crops, it's not good for anything without a lot of RO treatment. So where it's considered an alternative water supply, it meets the regional priorities. It helps implement the SWCA, which is Southwest Water Caution Area recovery strategy by using alternative supplies. It improves the Charlotte Harbor Bay by reducing the withdrawals of Shell Creek, especially in periods when there's high conductivity in it. And that's a good thing for the harbor. It affects Shell Creek, Prairie Creek, in terms of the environmental pluses that getting on some groundwater helps those water bodies. And lastly, the most important slide, the recommendation of third-party reviewers were to authorize continuation of the project to final design and construction, and to authorize reimbursement to the city for the RO water treatment plant expenses in accordance with the agreement as it exists today. And with that, the board voted unanimously to move to the construction phase of the RO project.
Nice.
So in a nutshell. Super. We have a $32.2 million budget approval from SwiftMud. Half of it will come back to us along with that state grant that we got. And when we bid it out and we get the results, if it's over $32.2 million, which we think it will be, we will then go back to SwiftMud to get the 50% for the rest. We will work our way, see if we can get that. We have Jerry Paul, our city lobbyist, already on board. He will be doing the bulk of the work. We do better when he does it. And
We do.
He's
so
the
we're
wizard.
full speed ahead.
Are we the only RO plant in the process at this point?
In the funding right now, yes. Yes.
After what we've gone through in the last few years, Rachel?
They're our friends now.
They are, and staff, hats off to Brian Armstrong and his
Yes.
staff. They have just been remarkable to work with. They're very professional, and they see the value of this project, and it's been great. It's been great.
Yes.
And I agree, it's been great from a distance.
Better stick around till we cut that ribbon.
Oh,
Mr.
definitely, I'll be here.
Okay, good.
Good. Okay,
Are we off that topic? 'Cause I
Yes,
haven't-
we're off that topic.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, thank you.
We're on city manager.
So I have an update on the restrooms. They are locked by our cleaning people around dusk after cleaning. On Tuesday and Thursday, they're left open for the folks who play music.
Okay,
Okay.
That's how it's done. Okay,
thank you.
that's all I got.
That's all you have?
Yeah, have a good holiday.
Okay. City attorney,
I have nothing further. Happy holidays to everyone. See you next year.
thank you. City clerk,
Yes, under boards and committees, starting with vacancies. We have unexpired terms on the building board, one for an alternate, one for a regular seat. And on the code enforcement board, we have a vacancy for an alternate and one for a regular seat. Under nominations, we have an expired term on the utility advisory board and one eligible applicant for nomination. If you'd like to nominate and appoint, you may do so.
Nominate and appoint Mr. Dougherty. Second.
we have a motion, a second, to nominate and appoint Mr. Dougherty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, and then also under nominations, we have two vacancies on the Punta Gorda Isles Canal Advisory Committee. We have 4 eligible applicants for nomination.
Nominate all. But I noticed
Yes,
on this
she's not
that Colleen is not here.
That's correct. I do not recall receiving an application from her.
Okay.
If you'd be willing to accept the,
I would certainly be willing to accept her nomination if she
Yeah.
gets her application in.
Yes.
There are 5 resumes attached to the folder,
we have Mr. Morrissey, Mr.
and that doesn't
Haskell.
include Miss Wright.
I'm sorry, yes,
That would make
Haskell Rhett asked to be considered. We have 5.
Okay, so that would be 6.
That would be
with
6.
Miss- With Colleen Wright.
6,
Mhm.
Okay.
if Colleen submits her
Yeah.
application.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay.
Policy and legislation. I don't think I have any. Thank you for helping me recognize the employees that helped me with the event. They were critical in pulling all that off, but they're all excited. I said, we won't meet in January. That'll be one thing. We'll meet in February. We'll take January off. But we had a debriefing meeting, and it went very well, and we talked about, issues and good things and bad things and things to change. And so we'll take January off, but the tree lighting will resume in February.
Bagpipes?
I don't know. We'll have to see. That's it for me. Council member comments. Let's start with Jaha.
Nothing, just the tree lighting was awesome.
Thank
and,
you.
Only getting better.
How was your Santa gig?
Very good, yes.
Jaha played Santa at the Cooper Street.
Yeah, and actually, we got presents from the state attorney's office.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a very robust day.
Nice, very nice.
Yes, and she gave wonderful candy.
Lynn?
Just one thing, I attended my first MPO meeting this week. That was quite enlightening.
I told you it would be.
And Commissioner Constance has asked that I relay to everyone that he is still pursuing the Nesbit intersection changes to do the right turn on red. And he requested that FDOT go out and review the site again to see if they would take a position on it one way or the other. So they're going to do that, and hopefully they will report on that at the next meeting. So that is not dead yet. I think his position is really coming from the fact that with the road closing behind the Justice Center, that would be one less egress point from the park and all of the facilities over in Lashley Park area. And second of all, the intersection improvements at Carmelita Street have been somewhat tabled for right now due to lack of funding. We provided some photos of a situation that occurred a year ago, June, with one of our colleagues sitting here at the dais. And they are going to take another look at that intersection to see if funding can be made available in some way. So that is not dead yet, it's just, it's kind of temporarily tabled, so, but that was it. And they asked me to relay to everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and I say the same to all of my colleagues.
Thank you. Nancy?
I have a couple of things. One is, since we're talking about the holidays, I mentioned to Howard that some of our snowflake ornaments around the city are really looking tired. And as you travel around the city, some of them, all of the bulbs are lit, and some of a fraction of it's lit, and some of them are like barely. And so I said, maybe it's time that we should start to incorporate something in our budget where we buy more of the really nice ornaments that we have, the wreaths, every year, so we aren't having to, I think we spent $45,000, Rachel, and I can't remember how many we bought,
It was at least 3 years ago.
but it was quite a bit, and Mark, I think, orchestrated all of that. But if we could just buy some and begin to replace some of the snowflakes,
I would agree, because we have the two different color snowflakes too, the LED and then the traditional, and it's,
so as I drive around different parts of our city, they're all over our city.
yeah.
And, some of them look like they're just on their last legs. And I know Rick is saying, yeah, they probably are. So I think it's time that, I brought this up to Howard, and I know we're gonna start the budget year, but it would be good for us to begin to start to do this over time so that we aren't having to go one big purchase.
I would think too, with the wreaths, we would save on electricity as well, because they're, got the 3 little bulbs, they're not a whole big lit up sculpture like we had, so I would totally be in favor of it. I think they look great.
Yeah.
They
do.
look warmer, they're a warmer look
Yes.
than a snowflake.
So I thought I would share that with council, so, and then I am, also selling cookbooks.
Oh, yeah,
These,
I need one, yeah.
these are $20, and these are, it's actually the Punta Gorda Old Timers who put this together. Gussie Baker led this, and I know that Jaha and Rachel and Lynn and I have recipes in here.
Gary does.
And,
Gary does too.
no, Gary didn't
I
submit
thought,
one.
I think it is in a different section of the
Did
book.
you see one?
It could be.
Oh, well, I know
Linda
that,
would have done it.
actually, Gussie made one up and put your
Pretty
name
sure
on it.
Oh, that could be.
We're all
I
published.
have had discussions with Gus.
So maybe it made it then.
Yeah, I made it.
She said that she made one up and put your name on it, and she
Okay,
said.
that's
that,
Gussie. She watches out for me.
But anyway, this is a fundraiser to put a new roof on the women's club that desperately needs a lot of things, but especially a new roof. And so I'm taking these wherever I go, and they're $20, and the proceeds go to help fund a new roof for the women's club. So I have copies here, I have more at home, and I know where I can get more. So you can buy in quantity, and I'm happy to sell them. So,
I already served my country.
and we take checks.
Serves mine as well.
The Punta Gorda
I bought 10.
the Punta Gorda Old Timers will take checks, so.
I gave them for Christmas gifts last
And Merry
week.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Is Hanukkah still going on?
Last night is tonight.
Okay.
Thank
So,
you.
You're welcome.
I made mine up too, so no guarantees if you try to make it. If I don't
My
follow
recipe is my
recipes.
husband's favorite. It has bacon in it, so.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
Yeah, it's a BLT dip.
Nice.
It is awesome. It's awesome.
So,
Your sausage dip look good.
anyway, and Happy New Year.
Oh, it's very good.
Thank you.
My
Gary?
husband inhales.
I just want to make one comment. I'm going to remember Mayor Fabian every time I do my, once a month, when I put down how many volunteer VIP hours were donated to our police department, because he was the founder of that, and he did a lot of other things that were very quiet. And secondly, I just want to wish everybody a joyous holiday season and a good new year, and looking forward to coming back next year and sharing our wisdom and proceeding with this, with doing the business of the city. So anyway, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure, and looking forward to it again.
Thank you. David, you had something?
Yeah, there was a matter that came up yesterday at Code Enforcement that I thought I should mention before I forgot it entirely. And that is that, I don't know how much of this may occur moving forward, but we had a property owner that put out a considerable amount of post-Irma debris, perhaps with the anticipation that the city would come by and collect it. It obviously was put out there, well, not obviously, but it probably was put out there after our services were ended, and the materials were of greater size and quantity that would otherwise be picked up by our solid waste division, and might not even have been picked up, as I understand, because it was a vacant property. So I think it might be helpful if, in fact, there is the possibility that others may still put their related debris out at the street, maybe in the website or whatever, we let the public know that the city is no longer going to be picking that stuff up. And if there is, I don't know if we have anywhere, anything in our website that identifies the maximum size of things like stumps or whatever that we would be picking up. That might be helpful too, because we don't know the end result of this matter that came up yesterday, because the property owner wasn't there, gave no explanation as to why it was left in that condition. But it was something that I thought might not be an isolated incident, so bring it to your attention.
I think we do have some kind of standards, because if you exceed what is a curbside pickup, then you have to call for the clamshell.
Special.
So, yeah,
We have that.
yep.
Okay.
Lynn?
Brings up a good point. If you go down Marion, just before you get to Fisherman's Village, on the left is a huge tree that fell in the storm, and they took the branches of the tree and cut them off, but the trunk of the tree is still lying there on its side, uprooted. Do we have anything we can do about that?
Lisa Hannon, zoning official. For the record, yes, we have an open code case on that.
Okay,
They are supposed to remove it,
okay, thank
but
you.
we're ongoing with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Anything
all
else?
I have. Seems
Okay.
like it's well in hand, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
Yes. Citizens' comments, any topic, please take the podium to my right. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to come in front of you. I'm here today with,
Your name for the
oh,
record?
Michael Hamans, And if you want to, I'll swear, and I'm sure there'll be people who swear at me. So, I thought that was a nice comment yesterday, that I've been sworn at. I have with me Doug Plattner. Here he is. He does exist. And we're here to ask you to to allow us to come back before you on a regular agenda item. I'm going to be out on the 3rd, and so it can't be January 3rd, but the second Wednesday of January, the third Wednesday of January, to come in front of you with a proposal for a settlement of the liens that you have against Winter Park Dodge, Doug Plattner. There's reasons, none of which are adequate, for why he allowed the property to remain without being properly taken care of and paying attention and being a responsible business citizen of the city of Punta Gorda. He wants to be a responsible citizen of Punta Gorda and to do business and open up there to allow it start with 6 to 10, but ultimately up to 26 employees to do business here in the city. They're already selling vehicles out of Arcadia to people in Charlotte County and Punta Gorda, and he wants to take care of this property. He wants to take care of his responsibilities here. The $119,000 is a stick too big. It hurts too much. And our code enforcement is really in order to bring people into compliance. He's now in complete compliance, wants to maintain that and to establish a good business relationship in Punta Gorda. Please allow us to negotiate with you about the size of that. It will be significantly more than what he's offered already. And I think that a suggestion that I heard that makes some sense is to have some kind of points along the way on his business plan to see that he's being a responsible citizen and to be able to put that in place. But the amount of money that it is right now, it is crippling his ability to finance coming in and opening and taking what was an abandoned property by the previous owner and what he let languish for way too long and didn't respect you by coming and paying attention when you were trying to get his attention. You've got his attention. Thank you very much for considering that and for allowing me these 3 minutes to ask you that. And so we'd like to present a plan and a proposal and to have that considered at your third meeting in January, third week's meeting in January.
Thank you. Anybody else? Citizens' comments, any topic? Yeah.
I just wanted to let you all know before you leave, that there is a, conflict of interest form in the originals file for you to sign. I'm sorry I didn't distribute them to you.
That's for
but,
seawalls.
Please sign that before you leave. So that-
Okay.
Keep moving forward.
Citizens' comments, any topic? Any topic?
Before we adjourn, I just happened to think of one more thing I was going to bring up. I was asked by a citizen a couple of days ago if we would consider putting in place a program like Alert Charlotte for just the city limits. I know we have Code Red, but it doesn't necessarily apply to when we have a water main break or a road closure within the city. And someone asked me if it was possible for us to set something up like that through our IT department. And I was wondering what anyone thought of that idea.
I'm not familiar really with it. so-
Alert Charlotte is a program where you can get updates, you can either get them by text or by email or even phone.
Yeah, why don't you get it to Howard and then he could brief us
Okay,
with it and we can look at it?
okay. You can look up Alert Charlotte on the Charlotte
I
County
get it
website.
Oh, you
Online.
get it?
And I get
Yeah.
'em, yeah.
I signed up for the Hurricane Irma updates. Is that the same thing?
Well, Alert Charlotte, you go onto the county's website, and you can direct it, whether you want it to go to
Yeah, I
your
think I
phone, your
got the
email, your text.
Yeah, I got
And
the,
and then the kind of responses that you want.
Yeah.
I got the emergency management. I signed up for their alerts.
Yeah. This is more geared toward, there's marine forecast updates if there's a really big storm brewing, or if a
Okay.
road closure, or there's a water main break, or an accident, or that kind of thing, it will send you an alert. So
Okay.
anyway, this was a request that we consider doing the same thing for the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Okay, don't leave.
I'll be back this night.
Don't
I gotta
leave.
go find Tom.
Don't leave.